Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California. This is Success Sadhana. My name is JM, and I welcome you all to a program today where we continue our Superpower series. Today is Superpower number 6, Forgiveness, the Mother of Compassion. With our speaker today, Vaish, a veteran Bhakti yogi, author, and a former monk. And we are very happy and glad that he is back after his spiritual retreat in India. So thank you so much for joining back, and really looking forward to another excellent session today. Welcome back, Vaish.
Well, thank you very much, Jam, for letting me back in after such a long hiatus. The music itself at the beginning gives me a stimulus to go on in life. It's so nice to have a place to come and discuss high-minded topics, self-improvement, and thank you everybody for coming in. I see Kennedy's out in the country on the farm. Gidget's here, Lijo, Sangeeta, and we got Mayank, Manish, Radhakripa. Great to have you all here. Well, today's a real staple. It's something that is not so easy to do, and it's interesting to consider why it's not so easy. We're talking about forgiveness today. And there are some interesting reasons to forgive. One of the conclusions that people sometimes jump to is that we're letting people off the hook for doing something egregious to us, but actually we're letting ourselves off the hook. I was just thinking lately about how much extra baggage we pick up just living our lives. It's kind of natural in the living condition to get attached to things. And one of the things we can get attached to is our resentment for what people have done to us. What if we could let all that go? How much freedom we'd have and not be stuck. So we'll talk about some practical ways to do that today. What do you think, JM?
Sounds great.
Okay. Yeah, we're talking about this as a superpower. And there's a way that the ancient wisdom literatures talk about forgiveness as a superpower. It's something that only someone with a higher purpose in life can achieve, is forgiveness, which gives us that kind of freedom to move about the world without getting stuck here and there. And it dramatically improves our relationships, and it also gives us a higher perspective of the world when we're able to forgive. Could also learn to forgive ourselves. I talk about this a lot because there's a sense in any creative act that I'm not good enough, or that whatever I'm doing is not up to par. And being able to forgive our own ineptitude and carry on with our duties and our creative activities is a helpful tool to have. So let's get started as usual with a little time to introspect. I'm going to treat us all to a little sound vibration from a tanpura, which is a simple instrument that creates a drone. And it's going to be in the key of middle C, so everyone can reach it. I'm just turning on my original sound, and let me know how this is for you. Mayank gave me a thumbs up. Kennedy gave me a thumbs up, so you can hear that. Thank you, Nagma. Thank you, Radhakripa. Thank you, Raj Mohan. So just take a moment to be in the present. Close your eyes, unless you're driving, and sit up a little straighter than you were a second ago. And see if you can't bring your awareness to your breath and relax, but keep an alert mind. In order to anchor the mind, just watch the breath and try to count even exhales and inhales. That is, maybe 4 counts on the way out and 4 counts on the way in. And just luxuriate in the fact that you have the ability to breathe right now. You have a very valuable vehicle, the human body. It's described in the ancient wisdom literature, the Srimad Bhagavatam, as a ship, a sailing ship. You can sail across all obstacles in this world using this boat, ship. You just need a little wind. We need a little wind in our sails. Check and see if you're aware of your breathing. Maybe count to 4 on the way in as you inhale, and count to 4 on the way out as you exhale. And just settle in for a moment and let any other concerns float away. You're not responsible for anything right now except for being in the present. And now, to get us centered and open up the energy centers, I'll repeat a mantra, 5 syllables, Nitai Gauranga, and I'll say it 5 times. If you'd like to, you can follow along behind muted mics. Experience the energizing power of mantra, sound vibration that comes from a higher realm. So I'm going to take an exhale and an inhale, and then on the next exhale, I'll start with the mantra if you want to join me. Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga And just feel how the vibration enters the ears, goes into the body, and the subtle energy centers are affected, uplifted. And in a moment, we're going to examine the power of forgiveness. Our lives are directed by our internal state, the way our minds and hearts are shaped by the way we associate in this world, by the habits that we have developed. In the process of bhakti yoga, self-realization means to reshape the heart, reshape the mind. When we do that, then our external world transforms. Starting from the inside, everything will manifest externally. So take another deep breath and exhale, and move your fingers, toes, rub your hands together, open your eyes, and let's come back into the room. That drone is so nice, I hate to turn it off. Thanks, everyone, for taking a moment. And JM, do you have any announcements, or do you want to give an introduction before I launch into my monologue?
No, really, looking forward to today's session, and I do have an announcement which I'll make maybe mid-session, so we can get started.
Okay. All right. So I promised to talk about forgiveness, and I'm going to start on a slide called the philosophy of forgiveness. This is divided into 4 parts, the 4 essential aspects of forgiveness that could be helpful to memorize, to write down. And the first is, surprisingly, it's for us. In other words, as it's said here, it's for you, not for them. The person you're forgiving, one of the hurdles that people often have is that I don't want to forgive them, that means they're right. No, it means that we're going to unburden ourselves. Doesn't mean we don't continue with due process. We have to forgive for ourselves. Otherwise, we carry that burden. And the second is, going from left to right, forgiving is not condoning. Just because you forgive somebody, it doesn't mean you condone whatever trespass they may have made to you or others. The third, which is bottom left, is resentment. Interesting word, resentment. Resentment, as a notable, famous personality once said, is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. But the word itself, resent, look at it, resent. Whatever happened, I keep resending it. If you get an image that disturbs you and then you keep resending it to your screen and looking at it over and over again, the screen of our mind is like that. When we resent, we resend the image of how we were harmed again and again. Then our mind is disturbed. And the fourth principle in the philosophy of forgiveness, if people forgave you only as much, this is a question for oneself. If people forgave me only as much as I've forgiven them, how would we be doing? Again, I'll say it. If people forgave you only as much as you've forgiven them, how would you be doing? In other words, we may expect people to forgive us, but how much have we forgiven others in various circumstances? So I'm going to repeat the 4 tenets of the philosophy of forgiveness. You don't have to put up the slide. Everyone's seen it. I'm just going to repeat it for those of you who are jotting things down or noting them mentally. First is, it's not for you, it's for them. The second is, forgiving is not condoning. The third is resentment is like drinking poison and hoping the other person will die. And the fourth is a question. If people forgave you only as much as you've forgiven them, how would you be doing? Let's see if just those principles have stimulated any thoughts that you would like to courageously share in this public forum.
Rajmohan, please go ahead.
Yes. So I like the resentment is like drinking poison and hoping the other person will die. This is the third time I'm hearing from Vish. After hearing that, I used to drink a lot of poison. I have a lot of hope that bad people will die. But after hearing this, these days I have moderated the amount of poison I take and the hope the other people will die. And together with these four, I also remember the carrying the honey badger.
The honey badger.
Example, yeah.
You want to say more about the honey badger?
So not forgiving other people and carrying that feeling with you is like walking everywhere with that wonderful, fearless honey badger to all the places that you go, and everybody will be tempted to ask, "Why are you carrying this honey badger? Why don't you just come and walk?"
You have such a good memory.
I focus on the things that I need the most, so I keep
Thank you.
carrying them. Thanks, Rich.
Yeah, that's nice. When we hear something that hits home, and the honey badger, actually, I have a picture of that coming up later. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's comical, the statement, and sad at the same time. Resentment is like drinking poison and hoping the other person will die. It's relatable, isn't it? And there's a way that if I resent someone, I might be tempted to treat them in a passive aggressive way or to think bad thoughts about them and so forth. Meanwhile, the person might not even know what he or she has done, or even if they do, it doesn't mean it affects them because we have a resentment towards them. Fantastic. Okay. It's not for you, it's for them. Forgiving is not condoning. Resentment is like drinking poison. Yes.
No, just think Charles. Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, Charles.
Hi. So
Hi.
great to see you, Vaishya Prabhu and JM and everyone else as well. My birthday's tomorrow, so today this is such a treat to be able to be in this highly elevated space and have this opportunity. So I appreciate it. It's an amazing gift. I think I love the topic and just had a question about I think, straightforward question about like how does one forgive? Like what is the process of forgiveness? Because I think they're like even though you may have this intention to want to forgive, there still may be a feeling of resentment there. Like how does one overcome that so you can actually forgive someone and not just do so, in terms of it, as like a kind of stage kind of thing? Like how do you actually go through the process of
Well, Charles, as usual, your timing is impeccable. The next slide. What to speak of the fact that we get to see you the day before your birthday. Happy birthday. And so many happy years being with you on this and through this medium and elsewhere. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Well, JM, I think that Charles opened the door for the next slide, how to forgive. So it's a practice. And there are ways that sometimes we may think, oh, I don't feel like forgiving, but you might not feel like going for a walk either, but you still have to do it to get your body moving, get the blood flowing. Everything can heal when the blood's flowing. And similarly, the principle of forgiveness, first, we wanted to bring it to mind as a philosophical point and as a noble-minded principle in life to forgive. And now, because Charles opened the door for us, we can go into a few points about how to forgive. And first, is to empathize. Empathy. So pathy means to feel, M means inside. Try to see that people are going through the same things that we're going through. We're all in the same boat. You might remember a time when you've done something unceremonious to someone else for which you may require forgiveness. And when they do something unceremonious to you, then you might be able to empathize and say, well, I've done stuff like that before. Do I deserve forgiveness? Just remembering. I'll give you a very practical example. You've heard me say this before because when I drive, I always use my turn signal. When I have to change lanes, I use it. I notice a lot of people don't do that today. In these days, maybe they think nobody's there, but I saw them change lanes without, and it irritates me because it's dangerous. What to speak of taking a right or left turn? Why not just use your little finger? It's so easy, and use your turn signal. So if somebody does it in front of me and I feel offended by that, I can think back, empathize that. Is there ever a time when I forgot to use it? There may have been. Out of thousands of turns, maybe I forgot once. Maybe that was their one forgetful time. They didn't do it. Empathy means try to put myself in the same situation as them and relate to them. What's going on with their lives also. People are compelled to do certain things because of the kinds of association they've had and the situations in life that they're facing. Maybe they're stressed or something. Second, in the practice of forgiving is if you can't fully forgive, try doing it for 1 day or even 2 minutes. This is a great technique for overcoming the mind that may be reluctant to do any kind of practice. And in forgiveness, we can always say, well, I'm just going to try it on for size. If I don't like it, I can return it, like Zappos. You get a pair of shoes, you don't like them, just give them back. It's not so hard. You just take them down to Whole Foods and drop them off at the door and they send them back for you. So in the same way, try forgiving. Just try it on. If you don't like it, you can give it back and say, nope, I'm going to hate this person the rest of my life. But we can surprise ourselves and see what it feels like, even if we do it for 2 minutes and say, I'll just pretend like I'm a forgiving person and I'll try it for 2 minutes. Number 3, don't wait for them to apologize. This is one of the ways that people put off forgiving. As they say, well, I'll forgive them as soon as they realize what they've done and they apologize to me. Well, first of all, if they don't realize what they've done, you may wait forever. And second of all, they may not feel like apologizing. It may not be in their wheelhouse to apologize. So don't paint yourself into a corner. It's like ultimatums. I don't like them very much because once you make them, you have no more recourse unless you want to diminish your stature in life and then go back on your ultimatum. I always like to say that workarounds bring turnarounds. Be a little flexible when things don't go your way. Don't worry about the way things should be. Just worry about the way they are right now and then deal with them. And so don't wait for people to apologize. And the sooner you forgive, the less painful it is. That's why I advocate instantaneous forgiveness. As you know well, I've said it before, driving a car, someone does something offensive, I immediately say, I forgive you. I don't want to carry it for 2 more seconds. That impulse that might start to rise in the heart, I think, oh, I forgive, I let it go. I forgive you. If you bump into somebody, maybe they bumped into you because they're careless. Other cultures have different bumping. Various cultures have various bumping habits. I just came from a long trip overseas. I was in India for a long time. People's sense of space is a little different. I got bumped quite a few times because there's a lot of people, they're crowded places. I had to instantaneously forgive. Don't let that impulse turn into something that you keep in your heart. JM, I see Gidget's got her hand up.
Go ahead, Gidget.
Hello.
Gidget, it's good to see you here on the show. And
Yes,
thanks for
I'm happy to be
contributing as
here.
usual.
I put in the chat about resentment because one
Yes.
of the things when I think about forgiveness, we don't forgive people because they did something right. We know they did something wrong to us. So that's why it's called forgiveness. But resentment is an emotional thing that we feel that we've been mistreated in somehow, and we hold on to that. Sometimes life just isn't fair. And when we accept that, it's easier to get closer to that forgiveness and not having that emotion, because resentment is negative, forgiveness is positive. So I just wanted to add that we don't forgive because people did something right.
I like it. Thanks, Gidget. Here's the definition. I just pulled it up while you were speaking. Resentment, bitter indignation at having been treated unfairly. And it comes from French. And it's directing me to resent, which means to feel bitterness. Expressing intensive force, and sentir, to feel. And then, in other words, you keep feeling it over and over again. But yeah, carrying on, keeping that bitter feeling. I think that goes back to that idea of the poison. It's a sort of a bitterness we feel. It's not a spiritual emotion, bitterness. Thank you very much, Gidget. Okay, I'll go back to the list. Number 5, be kind instead of right. You can practice this for a day. One of the ways you can practice this is in your daily journal, if you have one. I carry one with me wherever I go, and every day I write down my goals and to-dos on each page along with the date and so forth. And I was inspired by someone who wrote this, be kind instead of right. And I thought, let me try it. It really has a transformative effect, especially if you're around people and you start taking them for granted and you maybe aren't as nice as you could be, and then you start struggling to be right. Try it on for size, be kind instead of right. Of course, it doesn't mean you have to give in to bad philosophy or ideas and so forth, but if you err on the side of kindness, it's much easier to forgive people. And one I already mentioned, which is instantaneous, but saying it out loud to yourself when somebody offends is, I forgive you. It's amazing. It's an amazing mantra because all that we're talking about philosophically can become overridden by the powerful force within one's own chest that comes up when someone seems to offend, and then that energy pollutes our mind, our face. It puts us at a disadvantage for dealing with the world. And just learning to say out loud, I forgive you, reminds us of all the philosophical points and the virtue of forgiving. So empathize, try it on for size for 2 minutes or 1 day. Don't wait for an apology. The sooner you begin, the less painful it is. Be kind instead of right. Say out loud to yourself, I forgive you. And Charles, there's a way that looking from an existential point of view, that we're just passing through this world. Gidget, you said the world's not fair. And there are ways in which we're rudely awakened to that fact on a regular basis, aren't we? And then there's another thought that goes along with that from the ancient wisdom literatures that, well, the world is fair. Whatever I'm getting back, what I'm getting now is perhaps what I've done to other people in the past. And, or there's, or just I'll use and, or, I won't use both. My editor told me don't do that. Or there's a way that I can remember everyone gets their just desserts through the law of karma. Yeah, I was doing some exercise the other day and I pushed this big rubber ball out of the way. And somebody was right there and said, it's going to come right back at you. And I said, karma. I bumped it and it like hit the wall and it came right back at my head. So there's a way that anyone who bumps somebody else, offends somebody else, they're going to get it back. And there's a story in the Srimad Bhagavatam about a person who's being offended, who has been offended unceremoniously, and then a king comes along and says, oh, who did this to you? Because they were actually harmed. And the person refused to name the perpetrator, and a philosophical point that is, it takes a while to wrap your head around this one, but try it, is that he wouldn't name the perpetrator because it makes me complicit. That's a big philosophical point, because there's a way in which everyone we come in contact with, one way or another, is an instrument of our karma. What we've done, it's coming back to us through various personalities. So from a very high philosophical point, there's a way in which everything evens out. Have you ever heard this? It all comes out in the wash. So there's another way that to not become overwrought when there's a trespass. Although we may deal with it and do process, we don't have to hold on to it because we know it's all going to even out. Law of karma. So far, so good, I hope. The next slide talks about the practice and how the practice. Oh, there's more. There are comments. There are people raising their hands. I'm unaware of it. Please go ahead, Jam.
Mukta, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was dwelling on the point which you were making, that, and like recently I am kind of practicing this, that whenever I get this thought that it is not fair, or so I say to myself that, oh, this is an opportunity for me to work on myself. Possibly it is showing me where I really missed the point, or I should bring my attention. And so that is, I'm feeling that it helps me, right? It is pointing me in the direction of the growth and giving the control on myself. So that
what a great point, Mukta. What a great point. That one of my predecessor teachers, his name Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, had said that when you're able to forgive various, I keep using the word trespasses, offenses people may perpetrate against you, it gives you, he said, chid rakta for your chid sarira. I'll translate that. Chid rakta for your chid sarira. It means that you get spiritual blood for your spiritual body. In other words, the material body we have right now is a temporary vehicle, but we actually have a spiritual body. And the point of life is to develop that. And you get spiritual blood for your spiritual body when you're able to forgive and endure the various kinds of offenses that people make towards you. And so if you approach the world the way you're doing it, Mukta, there's never any disappointment because there's so many opportunities for purification. If I expect everyone to respect me, I'll be sorely disappointed. But if I take it as a point of purification, like a great mentor who I don't know, but who I heard on a radio interview when he was corrected almost unceremoniously in the middle of an interview and said, oh, I live to be corrected. I thought, yeah, one of my mentors. If we do that, there's no limit to how how much purification we can experience. Look, we got Nagma. Please go ahead.
Hi. So this is about the first point, and I think it was when I read it, it was "is for you, not for them." But when you were saying it, the other way. I noticed it because that's my favorite point. Um, and because once I was hurt, and they apologized, but I was not able. I was still hurting, and then I realized that it's not them. There's something inside me which needs to change. And that was my aha moment.
Thanks for sharing that, Nagma. I think we can all resonate. We can all resonate with that point. Something in us that wants to hold on, the false ego, something that compels us. But the philosophical point, philosophy is meant to take us above the fray. For instance, somebody hits your car, your friend comes along and goes, well, it's just a car. That's philosophy 101. It's just a car. It takes me above the ideas like my car, now I'm finished. And if somebody bumps us mentally and we recall this idea that it's not for them, it's for me, or instrument of my karma, and so forth, self-purification, we can rise above it. Humans are supposed to do that. At the same time, thinking about the human experience, we are exposed to so many stimuli that can irritate us and make us angry or make us sad. It's part of the reason that the human body is such an efficient vehicle for self-realization, because according to the ancient wisdom literatures, real purification and the highest realization comes in the highest kind of emotion, which is to develop pure love, unconditional love. And the bumps and bruises that we get as we move around the world are actually meant to prepare us for that. So having a very porous existence where so many of these incidents come to us is more of an opportunity. Okay, we have Kennedy coming live from the farm, from Bhakti Farms.
Hare Krishna, welcome back to the States. It's very good to see everyone. I really like what you just said about how forgiveness is a powerful step towards love and unconditional love. And in forgiveness, I've been through some circumstances where in not forgiving, it let me play the victim long enough to get what I thought I wanted, which is never truly what you want, nor is it what you need. And playing that victim mindset just plagues you endlessly. And then in forgiving others, it allowed me to heal from that. But the hard part, and I'm hoping you'll touch on this in your slides, is how can we take that step of self-forgiveness so that we can get to the point of unconditional love for ourselves?
Yeah, victimhood. There's a wagon you can get on and drive around town in. It's got a flashing light. I'm a victim. And then there's a way. I've realized the self-criticism, so forth. Once I was in a writing class, had an excellent teacher, Catherine Lucas. If you're out there, Catherine, I've been trying to track you down so many years ago. But in any case, when she was reading my papers, and she'd write in the margin, why are you hiding? Why are you covering your real self? And she could tell through the writing. And I was thinking about how reticent we are to bring out who we really are, even to our friends sometimes. And there's kind of a protective shield we create. And there's a reluctance to come down to reality of who we really are. There's an old friend of mine who joined us during October, November for a retreat in India. And he's a very wise person, been through a lot in his life. And then he was there as kind of a mentor for a lot of the younger people. And one of the things he said really impressed everybody. He said, I don't have so much to hide anymore, and I'm not competing with anybody else. And he really resonated that type of feeling. And the devotees, the people who were around him, who came to the retreat, they felt really comfortable around such a person. When we're able to give up that facade, it can be very helpful. And yes, I will talk more about that principle you mentioned of self-forgiveness. JM?
Yeah, can I
Permission
take
to
a
move
minute?
forward, or we got more?
Yeah,
Om's
there are
there.
a couple of more on the board, but before that, I just wanted to take this opportunity and make announcement of an upcoming podcast. I'm very delighted, and maybe you can share more. But we have the new book, The 4 Questions, which is out, and we have the first podcast on that. And then again, the team, Vash, you have been working on it for the last couple of years, and along with the entire team which is assisting. So the book is out, and we do have the podcast coming up on March 23rd at 6:30 p.m. At Stanford. In case you are able to join in person, you can join in person. We'll have nice question answer discussions, and as well as those who can't, they can join online. So before that, we would want to just give an overview of the work which has been going on and getting this book out last couple of years.
It's been a learning experience. I have written one other book previously, and I learned a lot in publishing it. It was more of a internal book. This one is meant more for public distribution in that it's broad general ideas that come from the ancient wisdom literatures, which I've hopefully put in a practical form in the 4 questions. One of the tenets of the book is that questions are like hooks. They pull to us the various elements we need in our life. And it's a very powerful process, asking the question. In fact, one of the oldest and most respected wisdom literatures in the yoga world is called the Vedanta Sutra. And the first sutra, which is a pithy statement, which is meant to be so simple and truncated that you can take it with you wherever you go. In Sanskrit, it says Tato Brahma Jignasa, which means now that you're a human, it's your time to inquire. And the implication is, if you have the wherewithal to ask the right questions, you're going to get all the truths of the world. It's just like I keep asking substandard questions like, where's my money? Or how am I going to survive? Ask bigger questions, it says. Tato Brahma Jignasa. Brahma means ask about your higher nature. And if you do that, you're going to not only solve your smaller problems, like how to survive in life, but you're also going to awaken your original consciousness through asking questions. So I've posed 4 questions that are hopefully representative of the kinds of questions that these ancient wisdom literatures direct us to ask. And the book is about 140 pages. It has some activity logs in the back of it, and it's been a labor of love. Been a team that helped us to get it all in place. I like comparing writing, what does be publishing and then marketing a book, to building a house from the ground up, when you don't have any electricity laid down or any plumbing either. You have to put everything in place, and it's a lot more that goes into it than meets the eye. But I really believe in books. One of the experiences I had recently when I was just in India, I had written another book maybe 7 years ago. And while I was visiting this place in India, a friend of mine who I know mostly through Zoom, he's from Russia and he doesn't speak English. He came up to me with a copy of my previously published book in Russian, and it had been translated. It's been translated in other languages now. And then I was just thinking, once you codify things, put it into written form and in a cover, it becomes a vessel that can go anywhere in the world. And that was my teacher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, was very fond of books. He was an author. He authored 80 books just in about 10 years. And they've been distributed all over the world. And he encouraged any of his students to also write. So I'm trying to fulfill my own creative sense and also follow in the footsteps of my teacher. And I'm very happy to have this book to offer. And I wrote it for my own self-purification. So if nobody reads it, that's okay too. I'm satisfied that we got it this far.
Thank you for the overview, and also all the hard work and labor you put in, labor of love, for enlightening us. We all are very excited and really looking forward to the book. And as Vash mentioned, there has been a team which has been working very hard, and I want to maybe take a moment, and Mayank, if you are there, if you want to just briefly share. I know quite a few questions have come about where can they find this book. I know it's already out, available in a couple of sites, so do you want to just direct them where they can find those books?
Sure, yeah. I'm also very excited, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. So the book is available online on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It's also available on iBooks. So if you have an iPhone or a Mac, you can get the ebook or the hardcover. So all those options are available.
Thank you so much, Mayank.
Well, a shout out to Mayank. He's been the project manager for this. Through thick and thin, my very erratic schedule, traveling so much, he's been really patiently bringing the project along. Thank you, Mayank. I deeply appreciate your consistency and enthusiasm for the project. It's made a huge difference.
Yes, Mayank, thank you for all the hard work and labor you put in getting us this far. And just to add to that, we are very excited that we have this opportunity where Raghu, who is a chief technology officer of a leading technology company in Bay Area. So he's bringing in the corporate perspective, and as well as several students will be there at Stanford, where what are the various challenges people in corporate life as employees or executives face. And so he'll be bringing those questions up, and Vaish, of course, will be answering those questions. So it'll be a very interactive discussion between Vaish and Raghu, and we'll have dinner to start with, followed by an overview of the book, question answer, and then we'll have some audience option for audience to ask questions. And you can actually, Mayank is kind enough that he'll be bringing actually a printed copy. Hopefully, they're trying. So if you want, you can actually get some signed copies as well at the event. So if you have availability on Saturday, March 23rd evening, please do join us in person. We'd love to have you. If not, at least please join us online. I will love to get your feedback. The QR code is there. You can click and sign up, or go to the 4questions.book.com/signup-zoom to sign up. So looking forward to seeing you all. Thank you, Vaish, for giving me the opportunity to quickly share. And now we can go back the slides.
Thank you, JM. Wouldn't have been possible without you, and I deeply appreciate the way you've been laying the foundation for these books to come out in a systematic way. Well, here we are in the last stretch of today's program. I'll make a few more points. There are some substantial points to make. And here we have the practice of forgiveness engenders empathy and compassion. When we start the practice of forgiving, we'll start to notice that it goes hand in hand with empathy and also a sense of compassion. Let me look the word up, compassion. What does it mean? Sounds good. Compassion is sympathetic pity and concern for the sufferings and misfortunes of others. And according to the ancient wisdom literatures, this is a barometer of one's spiritual advancement. When you feel It's called, there's actually a term for it. It's called paradukkha. When you suffer for the suffering of others, truly, it means that your heart is evolved. Your mind is evolved. There's an opposite, parasukha, which means you become happy at the suffering of others. That's a material phenomena. It's a kind of contamination. So this is one of the ways to see how advanced I'm becoming spiritually, is how much do I suffer for the sufferings of others? So the practice of forgiveness opens a door. It opens a door to empathy and compassion. Then we have the power to forgive, the strength to give up the desire to punish is another way of looking at it. I want to punish people. And when we look at forgive, I broke the word down into two words. For comes from a word which means completely, and give means to pardon. To completely pardon somebody, that's the power we're trying to develop. And the power to empathize. This is also broken down. Empathy is the ability to feel for another person's situation. And number one, M means within the heart. Pathos means feeling. So we're able to develop these high-minded feelings. Sympathy, empathy, or sympathy versus apathy. Apathy means that we have no feeling for others. People who are pathologically defective have that sort of sense of apathy towards others, at least according to the Bhagavad Gita and other wisdom literatures. Then there's the power to be compassion. Compassion means the ability to feel for another's suffering. Kam means with, together, and pati means to suffer. And here we come into the tips. Let's go into the tips because we have 5 minutes left. Okay, going back, this there's the badger. Badgers are powerful little creatures. Their teeth are so sharp. They're feared by most animals. In fact, a lot of sports teams name their team the Badgers. So what's a grudge? Carrying a grudge is a badger-like creature we carry with us, a grudge against somebody. And there it is snarling and sometimes nipping at us, and we continue to carry the grudge around with us. So what's the tip? Take your grudge and drop it off in the forest, let it run back and live in the wild rather than in your house, in your car, under your arm, and so forth. The next is when you must express moral outrage to express your love, forgive simultaneously. I'm trying to make this point because oftentimes when we talk about forgiveness, everyone says, aha, yeah, but what about the problems of the world? What about just letting people do with it? If everyone just forgave everyone, that would mean people would get away with bad things. We're not advocating for that. I'm saying that you can express moral outrage and at the same time forgive. And I'll make a further point, and that is it can be even more powerful when you do that. Because when you don't invest your personal emotion in it, but you're pointing out someone's or a process's faults, but you don't have a vested interest in it, you're more objective. And according to the rule I talked about before that a colleague of mine taught me, the more your emotion goes up, the more your reason goes down. It's an inverse relationship. And then the final tip here is remember that forgiveness is your choice. It's part of your free will to forgive people. If you want to exercise free will, try practicing forgiveness. And then also remember that everyone has some good qualities. It never fails. I've seen vendettas that have gone on for 20 years, and when the people actually get together and talk, they say, oh, we have a lot more in common than I thought, and he's not such a bad person. Why wait 20 years? Why not be proactive? And one can do that in one's mind by assuming that even the worst among us or the offenders, they have some good qualities as well. And then we have a quote here that I like, goes along with forgiveness, and that is that forgiveness does not mean that you have to make a wrong a right. It means you release yourself from the resentment you feel towards the offender. That's a cardinal principle of the whole aspect. Let's take the last few minutes to hear any reflections. Reflections means anything that's stuck in your mind. Shankar, beat you to it, JM.
So glad to see you here.
We can barely hear you. Usually we hear you very clearly, but
Am I audible
now?
now?
You're good. Now
My
you're
mic
good.
was not in the right position. Your association was so greatly missed. I'm so happy to be here with you today. So many things that I have to share. I'll start with the lighter thing. Everybody says life is not fair. If life is not fair to everybody, then how is it unfair? It's and you explained it so nicely that it's come back to us of whatever we've done. Then we were talking about this in this age and day, we are all Amazon Prime people. We want everything instantly, instant gratification, instant food, instant everything. And what that has led to is impatience in us. We get despondent very easily, as if God knows who am I, and it also boosts our false ego. If we really want to be instantaneous about anything, let's start with forgiveness. That's going to do a lot of good to us rather than that. So yeah, let's be Amazon Prime instant with that. Also, also I was thinking, you said strive to be kind, not to be right. I was thinking that yes, in being right, it is just for that moment, but being kind goes all the way. It's just propelling me to be a better version of myself every single time. So that really works. And then that's the famous saying, all is well that is end well. So let us end in the right. The offender, whatever they have to do, they've done it. Now the ball is in my court. If I forgive, I'm going to close it out very nicely. And if it ends well, everything is well. So these were just few thoughts I wanted to share.
Wow. Thank you very much. You brought out some foundational points that I think I'll have to make sure I gather those in and include them because they're really well. You really stated them nicely. Thank you very much, Shankari Kaur.
There are a couple of reflection thoughts in the chat. I'll quickly go through them. One is Jared says, we as humans also tend to create stories in our minds in reaction to things that happen. Much of our emotion originates from stories that we have created that may not actually exist in reality yet. We are reacting to our own assumptions. We are reacting to our own assumptions.
What a great point, Jared. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's so much of what we're resenting anyway is didn't necessarily even happen, right? Yeah, the stories.
Yeah, and Om asked the question, how can you forgive someone who doesn't care for others and their feelings?
Yeah, it goes back to this point that you may forgive them for your own purposes. That is, that you don't have to carry the grudge. Nonetheless, it doesn't mean that we don't deal with the situation responsibly. For instance, if somebody's an abuser or a bully, it doesn't mean that we don't deal with them. And I talked about this in another program, how to deal with bullies or abusers. We should deal with that. It's not that we forgive and forget necessarily, that we may forgive but not forget the trespass, and then due process should be done even as we forgive, because we live on two levels. One is a very high-minded spiritual level, and the other is the practical world that we deal with. And if somebody's a bully or an abuser, they should be taken to task by society and dealt with appropriately. Even as we do that, which is one of the main points here, we can let go internally and not hold on to the sense of indignation, bitter indignation. That was the definition, remember? Why carry the bitterness? Just deal with it straightforwardly through the right channels. And when there's a lot to be said about that also. but we don't have time right now because I just went over. JM, was that it?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks everybody. It was a really heartfelt session for me making it back here because I've been out of town so much. I've been really missing all of you. And I'm heartened and enlivened by your enthusiasm, and thank you for the comments. I read them on the side there about the book and so forth. It becomes a kind of a part of you, the book. So I'm greatly encouraged and gratified by your kindness of saying, oh yes, I'd like to read it. On that note, JM, I saw the Himalayas. You know, that's how you pronounce it, actually. We flew on one of the legs of our journey. I flew from Calcutta to Delhi, and it was a clear day. There's nothing I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of mountains. I'm from California. I've been to Colorado. I've been in Switzerland. In fact, we stopped in Switzerland on the way home, and I saw the Alps there. Nothing compares to the Himalayas. They're mind-blowing. And although I couldn't see them, I knew from the lore of the Himalayas that the yogis there avail themselves to a kind of ritual, which is when they see colleagues who are meditators, they raise their hands high in the air and they give this statement to give encouragement, which is Hari Bol. So I thought it would be appropriate we try it before we leave. Anybody wanted to go? 1, 2, 3. Hari Bol.
Hari
Oh!
Bol!
Thanks, everybody. Hope to see you soon.